morning, good morning. The hearing of the Committee on the Environment and Sustainability is hereby called to order. Today, we will hear testimony on 3 bills, each of which are designed to make tangible steps forward to further protecting our environment. As a sponsor of these bills, I will share opening remarks. However, first, we need to acknowledge that we have members of the committee here, and Councilman Bill Green-Lee, Councilman Derek Green, and Council President Darrell Clark. We now have a quorum. The clerk will please read the title of the first bill.
Bill number 190600, an ordinance amending Chapter 9/3400 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Energy Conservation to add a new section 9/3403 entitled Building Energy Performance Policy to require owners of certain large buildings to conduct tune-ups of energy and water systems in such buildings under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you very, very much. As I please ask the first panel to move to the table, I'll give my opening remarks. Our first panel includes Rich Freach, and please correct me when you get to the table if I inaccurately pronounce your name. He serves as a Senior Program Manager for the Office of Sustainability, and Francine Locke, Sustainability Director for the School District of Philadelphia. Bill number 190600 is an outgrowth of the energy benchmarking legislation authored by my office over 7 years ago. Back in 2011, to help achieve the goal and vision of a more clean and energy efficient city, we began the path to require buildings over 5,000 square feet to report their energy and water usage. Passing the energy benchmarking bill required months of negotiation, discussion, and compromise. And I in particular want to thank BOMA, who were part of those negotiations, and their just straightforwardness in us arriving at a mutually acceptable outcome. Because of energy benchmarking, we now know that the 2,000 large non-residential buildings in the city account for less than 0.5% of all buildings in the city, but roughly 15% of the citywide carbon footprint. This legislation calls for those buildings to do more by conducting an assessment and implementing minor, low-cost changes that will improve energy efficiency. The operative words here are low cost and minor, and we know that that's all relative depending upon who's talking. Working in partnership with the Office of Sustainability, we first tested this program on a city building, the Juvenile Justice Center in West Philadelphia. Through that process, we learned that a building tune-up costs about 5 cents per square feet for a building, but can lead to 12 to 15 cents in savings through lower energy costs. So this legislation today helps the environment and the economic bottom line for more business owners. During the summer, my office, along with the Office of Sustainability, held stakeholder roundtables to solicit needed feedback on this legislation. Remember, where we start out, we seldom end up. It requires a lot of input from a host of stakeholders, and ultimately, hopefully, a better bill. Based on that feedback, we have made edits to the bill to ensure that it provides clear guidelines and is not onerous on business owners, period. I want to thank the professionals at the Office of Sustainability for your thoughtful engagement throughout this process. And I also want to acknowledge and say thank you to the School District of Philadelphia and the professionals there working in partnership with my office to achieve the mission of this legislation. We will now move to your testimony. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Reynolds Brown, members of the committee. My name is Rich Free, and I serve as a Senior Program Manager for the Office of Sustainability of the City of Philadelphia. I'm here to testify in support of Bill number 190600, which, as the Chair said, would set new requirements to promote energy efficiency in Philadelphia's largest buildings. Our office, the Office of Sustainability, works to improve community quality of life and to prepare Philadelphia for a hotter and wetter future due to climate change. In the absence of federal leadership on climate, cities like ours are stepping up to cut carbon pollution that's warming our planet. Our mayor, Jim Kenney, has committed to cutting Philadelphia's carbon emissions 80% by 2050, and transitioning our city to 100% clean energy. In Philadelphia, almost 80% of our carbon emissions come from buildings and industry, which is why it's so important to focus our efforts on legislation like this that make our buildings more energy efficient. Last year, our office published Powering Our Future, a clean energy vision for Philadelphia, which outlines specific opportunities to slash carbon emissions from buildings citywide. Of the strategies we model to improve the efficiency of existing buildings, a tune-up requirement like the one in Bill 190600, covering buildings over 50,000 square feet, was among the most impactful strategies we modeled, as well as the most cost-effective. We know that many buildings in Philadelphia are already highly energy efficient. This bill provides a high-performance pathway for those properties, recognizing industry leaders for the hard work they've already put into their properties. For those that have not yet achieved that high-performance status, this bill requires a building tune-up once every 5 years. What is a tune-up? So just like your car, buildings require occasional tune-ups to ensure that the systems that provide energy and water and tenant comfort are performing at their peak. These tune-ups are small, cost-effective tweaks to existing systems and building controls that will lead to cost savings for building owners and increased comfort for tenants. These tune-ups will be low-cost investments for building owners, and they'll yield very positive financial returns. As an example, our office recently completed a model tune-up of the city-owned Juvenile Justice Center, which the tune-up cost about $12,000, but we estimate that the annual energy and water cost savings to the general fund will be in the range of $24,000. So that's a return on investment of under 6 months. Additionally, tune-ups will result in huge benefits for Philadelphia's climate goals. Our office estimates that implementing this legislation will cut carbon pollution citywide by nearly 200,000 metric tons. That's the climate pollution equivalent of taking 40,000 automobiles off our road. To put it even more plainly, this is one of the most impactful and effective pieces of legislation to bring down Philadelphia's carbon footprint that we have ever advanced as a city. We know that a successful transition to a clean energy future in Philadelphia can't just be about cutting energy waste. We also need new careers for our residents in the clean economy. We worked with our partners at the Philadelphia Energy Authority to model the job creation impact of this legislation, and we determined it could support as many as 600 new job opportunities during the first 5 years of implementation. That moves us much closer toward the ambitious goals of the Philadelphia Energy Campaign to create 10,000 new energy jobs in Philadelphia. And we've met with our close partners at the Energy Coordinating Agency to discuss their new training center and how we can partner to ensure that students through the Philadelphia School District and returning citizens are able to join this new workforce and complete these building tune-ups. Our office has demonstrated expertise working with building owners to improve efficiency. We have managed the city's energy benchmarking requirement for these same buildings since 2013. In the past 5 years, that program has cut energy use from large buildings 5% with a consistent compliance rate of over 90%. Our office will also work with the Department of Public Property and other departments of city-owned buildings to ensure that we complete the necessary tune-ups for the roughly 25 municipal buildings covered under this bill. And lastly, I'll just say that we will also be sure to work with the School District of Philadelphia, one of our closest partners, to ensure that we are providing technical expertise and resources to help the district comply with this regulation as well. Since the introduction of this bill in June, our office has met with stakeholders in the building owner community, environmental advocates, and energy service professionals who have all provided thoughtful recommendations to strengthen the legislation, guide regulation, and enforcement. You can see the result of that work in the amendments to the bill today. We have shared these recommendations with you, Chair Reynolds Brown, and your office, and we are confident that the resulting legislation will be a huge step forward in our city's efforts to curb climate pollution and move towards a clean energy economy that works for all Philadelphians. For these reasons, our office is excited to support Bill number 190600. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I thank you, too, for your very thorough testimony. Let's hear from the School District of Philadelphia, and then we will open it up to questions. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Reynolds Brown, members of the Philadelphia City Council Committee on the Environment, and members of the public who are attending today's hearing. My name is Francine Locke, and I serve as the Director of Sustainability and Green Schools for the School District of Philadelphia. In my capacity, I have responsibility for directing the district's sustainability plan, Green Futures. The plan was shaped in part by the city's Green Works Plan and launched in 2015 with the support of the city's Office of Sustainability and other partners such as the Philadelphia Energy Authority. Green Futures has been recognized by the U.S. Department of Education with a National Green Ribbon School District Award in 2017 and by the Pennsylvania Governor with an Award for Environmental Excellence in 2018. These awards were received for our actions in the areas of education for sustainability, consumption and waste reduction, energy and efficiencies, school greenscapes, and healthy schools. The district is dedicated to reducing energy consumption in our buildings. This is demonstrated through recently completed ESCO pilot projects at 3 schools and committing to completing more guaranteed energy savings projects at 12 to 20 additional schools. The district's capital, facilities, and maintenance departments have also performed other energy-saving projects throughout the district. This past year, the facilities department replaced outdated light bulbs with LEDs at 33 schools. This modest investment cost approximately $1,300 per school, with the average return on this investment within 10 months. The district is supportive of a citywide building energy performance policy that would require large buildings to receive tune-ups of their energy and water systems. This aligns with our district's existing sustainability goals to reduce energy consumption. Because 80% of the citywide carbon footprint is from buildings, and the district is the second largest building owner in the city, the district realizes the importance of conducting tune-ups to ensure that existing systems are operating efficiently and to bring our buildings up to a state of good repair to improve energy performance. Although there is no budget allocated for the district's compliance with this mandate, we have completed many energy-saving projects over the past 3 years, and others are in the workings to produce energy conservation results that comply with or exceed the requirements of this legislation. This includes LED bulb replacements, mechanical system recommissioning, and capital improvements such as HVAC system replacements, and new construction that result in high-performance buildings. The estimated cost for the district to perform tune-ups at 157 schools is between $1.1 to $2.3 million. Once again, I want to emphasize that there is no budget allocated for this mandate. The immediate cost savings, however, to the district would be $3 million annually in energy costs once these tune-ups are completed. So there is a return on investment from us performing this work. In addition to these energy savings and cost reductions, this work exemplifies the district's commitment to preserving the environment for our children's future, which will be impacted by the actions we take today. We look forward to working with Councilwoman Reynolds Brown and the Office of Sustainability to improve the energy performance of our buildings. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this testimony. We've also submitted a slide deck to the committee to support this testimony.
Thank you very, very much. Please allow me to acknowledge that members of our committee, Councilwoman Janie Blackwell and Councilwoman Helen Gim, have joined us. And so, Councilwoman Helen Gim, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And so I just want to get some clarity. Did the district say that, you said that you have no budget allocated for compliance, but acknowledged that the cost savings would be more than double, maybe potentially triple what you would do once you got them underway. So are you saying that the district will comply with the mandate, or are you not saying that?
I'm saying that the School District of Philadelphia presently has energy conservation projects that are going on. That is one of the capital improvement programs initiatives. And we also have Green Futures, our sustainability plan that has goals and targets for energy conservation. We are going to work closely with the city's Office of Sustainability, particularly Christine Knapp and Rich Free, using their expertise and resources to find a way to comply with this regulation. particularly finding assessors who will be able to do this work in our schools and provide us with recommendations that are workable, that we can do, similar to what we're already doing, falling in line with the work the district is presently doing for energy conservation. So we're working closely with the Office of Sustainability, Philadelphia Energy Authority, and we will find a way to comply with this regulation in terms of assessments and the tweaks. These are supposed to be low-cost tweaks for our buildings.
Point of information.
Say again?
My staff and I, in speaking with your colleagues at the school district, acknowledge that there are a gazillion pressures on the school district of Philadelphia. And it's quite frankly unfair for us to believe, think, or believe or think that the school district can walk on water to meet the dictates of this legislation at this hour. And so I am very sensitive to the fact that, given the other pressures and demands on the district, there is the commitment to move towards that end, but there's also the awareness that you cannot do that today because you have other priorities in place that you need to honor and check off while you move towards honoring the legislation. And my staff and I are interested in language that protects you in that way.
Thank you. That is very well said.
But I'm also just trying to understand that if you could achieve triple the amount of savings, wouldn't that be considered an investment and not an expense?
Absolutely, but you have to have the cost up front.
And you don't have $1.1 million.
I can't answer that question directly, other than saying that that amount has been used for capital improvements and other work, but that's been planned and scheduled through the capital improvement program. So we don't have a budget allocated for this particular work.
Measure.
That's understood.
Correct.
Right. You may not have a budget directly allocated,
correct.
but I know the district has to make decisions, but I don't think it's that you don't have $1 million. It's just a question of whether this rises to the priority. Is that right? But you are saying on the record that this is at least double the savings, potentially triple.
That's what the numbers look like. And Mr. Free is really the expert, and the Energy Office has supported us in trying to make these calculations to understand the benefits to the district in terms of finances. I don't know if you want to answer any of that, Mr. Free.
Yeah, absolutely. I can just speak to kind of the process by which we developed those numbers, which was to scale up the estimate from the Juvenile Justice Center pilot that we did to the roughly 150 buildings at the school district that would not kind of be able to comply through the high-performance pathway currently written in the legislation.
Pull the mic closer.
Sure.
and repeat those
Sorry
last
about
couple of
that.
sentences.
Yeah, absolutely. So we scaled up we basically used the numbers from the Juvenile Justice Center pilot and said if we realize the same savings across the 150 or so schools at the district who would be required to comply, separate from those who would be considered high-performing because they're already high-performing schools from an energy standpoint, we would be able to see kind of that $3 million estimated savings. And that's an annual cost savings.
Right. And how quickly do you achieve those savings?
The tune-ups can happen within 6 months. That's roughly the timeline that we're on for the Juvenile Justice Center.
And then you believe the savings kick in right away, and when you say so they begin to accrue once the tune-ups
Once the
are
work
completed,
is complete. Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
you can immediately start seeing significant savings in those buildings.
That's right. The one caveat that we were actually talking about before we began is, there's another component to this, which is once the tune-up is done, there is a continued training that needs to happen for building operators to ensure that once the tune-up happens, that those systems continue to be optimized and be in a state of good repair. So we're dedicated to working with the district and our partners. Green Building United, who will testify shortly, runs a building operator training program, which we believe would be a great model for something we could work with the district on to ensure that those savings are persistent.
Right. So I guess for clarification, I definitely understand that there's an initial expense up front, but the district does have a capital budget. It also has some urgent needs in other places, but if savings begin to accrue immediately and they begin to deplete the burden on the utilities in particular, I'm trying to understand why this is seen as a burden as opposed to a immediate cost savings. If they can be achieved relatively quickly, I'm just trying to understand what the problem is. Is it like you don't have enough workers or you don't have enough staff to be able to do it?
I think that we all see the benefit of this, this legislation, and we want to be able to do this. Unfortunately, we are not able to commit completely at this time as a school district financially. And, you know, if you would like to know more about how we possibly could fund this or the budget involved with this, we can get back to you if you have any specific
Yes, we
questions.
know you can always get back to us, of course, yeah.
But, I mean, we really do see the value in this work. It not only is a fiscal savings and an environmental protection factor, but it benefits our students in seeing us as environmental stewards for the school district of Philadelphia.
And how many schools are we talking about that you would have to do it?
157 would fall into the category of greater than 50,000 square feet, and with an Energy Star score of less than 75.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Green?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to thank Councilmember Brown for the work she's done, not only in this committee, but this legislation. But I just have some concerns as I listen to the response to some of the questions. Of the 157 buildings that need tune-ups, how many of those are buildings where there is needed maintenance?
We haven't done a formal assessment to say what needs there are for these 157 buildings. That information is based upon an analysis that was provided by energy experts from the Office of Sustainability based on square footage, Energy Star score, and benchmarking data. So we haven't done an analysis to say what is needed, other than the Parsons facility condition assessment information we had from several years ago. Rich, do you want to share anything on how the...
No, I think that was a great summary of kind of what we know from our office's perspective.
I mean, but it's a pretty, and I would think it's probably a fair assessment that these buildings that need tune-ups also probably have some significant maintenance concerns as well, considering that the average age of schools in the city of Philadelphia is about 86 years. So as you're doing, and I think this is a kind of a fundamental question and concern that I've had with the district for a number of years, is that we've talked about trying to get a capital master plan on all school district buildings and a prioritization, and there's been some pushback. There's different language that's used in that regard, but there seems to not be and I understand resources are a challenge, but a school district is how large, what's the size of the school district from a capital budget standpoint?
We have over $4 billion need to bring our...
Well, I know it's about I've heard $4.5 to $5.5 billion capital
it's
deficit.
going up every
But
day.
so the annual budget of the school district is about
The annual budget for the
Right.
school district of Philadelphia in
Right.
terms of operations and maintenance, I don't have that information with me today.
Okay, can you give me a range? I mean, I haven't sent, I'm trying to get, can you give me a range of what that amount is?
I can get back to you with that information to provide
So
accurate...
you don't, but you have some type of range of what that amount is?
I don't have that with me today.
Okay, is there anyone from the school district that can provide that information?
We can bring that back to you so we have accurate information to share. You're asking for the amount of money spent annually on the
Just
operations and maintenance of our buildings?
Just generally, just what's the general, so you're saying that you don't have a general understanding of what that range is?
I can tell you that the financial need is for over $4 billion.
Well, I know that's a capital deficit. I'm just talking, what's the range, I'm not asking you to give me a specific amount, just give me the range of capital dollars that's spent on an annual basis at the school district.
I don't have that information with me today,
Okay,
but I can get back to you.
all right. And I mean, we're talking about $1.1 to $2.3 million, which okay. Would you say on the record that the school district spends significant millions of dollars on maintenance and capital projects every year?
Yes, I could say that.
Okay. Significantly more than 1.1 to 2.3 million?
Yes.
Okay. And as you're doing that significantly more spending on an annual basis, is it also safe to say that in those buildings where the maintenance is needed, there's also an opportunity to do some of the tune-ups that this legislation calls for?
Yes.
Okay. So And also based on testimony, what I've also heard today is that when you make this investment, you're also going to have a greater return on investment to the school district in reference to making those buildings spend less money.
Agreed.
Okay, so considering that the school district spends a significant amount of money per year, don't you think it would make sense to make an investment to do some of the work that's contemplated by this bill now so you can reduce our expenditures going forward?
Yes.
Okay, so you're saying you don't have a budget allocated for it, but I haven't heard any commitment to do this going forward in the upcoming budget process.
We can definitely look into that, and I mean, it's a great idea, and we need to think about putting this into the budget for the upcoming years. As the chair mentioned, though, there are other priorities that
Well, there's
we
always other priorities,
Agreed.
but this,
Yeah.
to me, seems
There's
to
a return
be...
on investment with this would
Right,
pay
but,
for it.
I mean,
Agreed.
there's always other priorities. However, this is something that can have a beneficial impact to the school district by reducing expenses, but also has other greater benefits to not only the school district, not only people that are working those buildings, but the city as a whole.
I agree with you, and I think the district's position is that we want to comply with this regulation. We can't commit today to saying that we have a budget allocated for it.
No, I'm not asking about
but
it.
it's really good. It's a legislation that will impact the district and benefit our children. There's a financial return on it, protects the environment. As the sustainability director for the School District of Philadelphia, to me, it's a win-win situation. But we do have to bring it to the members of the district who make decisions on the budget allocation, and also look at the other priorities, as the chair mentioned. But I am an advocate and a supporter of this legislation. It's a matter of really having the ability to commit to it with the budget allocation and funding. And I'm not in a position to be able to say that as the sustainability director.
Okay, how much money, let me ask this question, how much money was spent this past year on sustainability initiatives by the school district?
That's a very good question. So Green Futures is a lens for the school district in terms of looking at our operations, maintenance, and capital, as well as procurement and academic programs, looking at those from a sustainability perspective, infusing the district with sustainability mindset. And so capturing that value through dollars is difficult. There's only 2 people, plus a Fen Vista, who are members of Green Futures, who work just for Green Futures. So our staffing is very limited. And we're trying to actually grow the program, working with the Office of Sustainability. And so the answer to your question, how much are we spending on sustainability at the School District of Philadelphia? We could break that down into green stormwater infrastructure projects, school gardens that are being constructed, the professional development Green Future series that we are administering to teachers and staff members, the way we're infusing sustainability into our district, changing the organizational culture. It's hard to put a dollar value to that, and I can try to do that. Our goals are to reduce energy consumption, increase our waste diversion rates. So part of sustainability is through a recycling contract and through district programs at specific schools where they're trying to do composting to reduce their waste, and through procurement green purchasing program. The city's Office of Sustainability recently shared with us a policy that they developed on green purchasing. So I'm sorry to give a long explanation, but putting a value on sustainability at the district right now is difficult for me to do at this hearing, if that makes any sense.
And that's because your office does not have the resources to measure the full impact.
With the amount of folks that are in the Green Futures office, it's very difficult to do that. We would need assistance by having someone who is a financial analyst who could work with us on developing the figures that would support sustainability and share and visualize, allow you guys to see how much the district really is spending on sustainability, because there is a lot going on at our district, really positive work that is sustainability infusing our district. And we truly believe that our students are better in schools that are green. So our goal is to create green schools. Children learn better in schools that are clean, energy efficient, where children are recycling. They see adults doing these things. They become stewards of their environment, global citizens, and community leaders when they see a school doing these very positive things. They bring that home, they bring it to the community joins us. And so not only are we changing the mindset of our students and teachers, but community members. There are so many benefits of green schools, and we work with the National Wildlife Federation Eco Schools program, trying to get our schools registered as eco schools. I think we have about 38 schools that are registered presently, and through that program, teachers receive curriculum that they bring to students and share with them, climate change lesson plans. They take them on field trips to learn about the watershed through the Fairmont Waterworks, which is a great partner with us, where they have curriculum that has been developed by teachers in the School District of Philadelphia about sustainability and how we impact our environment. And this actually leads to empathy, and this leads to our sustainability manager, Megan Garner's here also, and she is an education for sustainability advocate who has worked with many teachers over the past 2 years on ensuring that we are bringing sustainability to the classroom. And this leads to a lot of side effects too. As I was mentioning, empathy. There is a teacher at a school who has been implementing sustainability practices in her work in a classroom. And she has seen a huge change in classroom culture where children are respecting themselves, their environment, their colleagues and teachers, and it's all because of this infusion of sustainability into the work. So I could talk for a long time, Councilman Green, on this because I have a passion for it, but we would love to grow our Green Futures plan at the district. There's a lot of benefits to it.
So clearly you have a passion and commitment for sustainability.
Yes.
Would you say that the district as a whole has the same commitment?
I believe that our leadership is very supportive.
So in that regard, how long have you been in this role at the school district?
3 months.
3 months, okay. Gotcha.
Prior to that,
And
I was with the district for 14 years in another role.
So you were with the district for 14 years?
Correct.
Prior to this?
But I was here in 2015, so we started, Green Futures was launched in 2015 after 2 years of working with stakeholders and partners, including the Office of Sustainability, the Philadelphia Energy Authority, Fairmont Waterworks, the Franklin Institute, the Philadelphia Zoo, the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, the Trust for Public Land. I could name probably a dozen partners that worked with us for about 2 years to develop Green Futures, which was launched in 2015, actually in City Hall with Mayor Kenny. It was a really wonderful day when we launched that at a press conference, and we had a reception at the Philadelphia Zoo. And it's been 3 years since we launched this program, this plan. And we have seen great successes. And so I may have only been in this role for 3 months, but I've been working on this, and I'm the co-founder of the Green Futures program since 2014. So, yeah.
And so what is your budget for Green Futures, your departmental budget?
We don't have a budget. Our Chief Operating Officer, Danielle Floyd, was kind enough to give us the opportunity to do this work without a budget other than our staff.
So your staff is funded, but your department does not have a specific budget?
That is correct.
Okay, and the school district has been working on this for about 3 years?
Correct.
Okay, and your perspective, and I definitely hear your passion and your dynamic, but the fact that the district has not budgeted any resources toward an initiative that's been around for 3 years really begs a question on their level of commitment to this goal of sustainability in the school district and in school buildings. I know through my work, and I work closely with the Philadelphia Energy Authority, for a number of years, we were really trying to get the district to move forward on doing some initiatives that they started this year in reference to solar panels and other energy savings concepts that would reduce expenditures at schools, as well as making the environment in schools more conducive for learning.
Yes.
And we really did not get we didn't get movement on that issue until really the Energy Authority basically took it upon themselves to do the work for the school district, because the district did not have the resources to commit to doing this. So this kind of begs the question in reference to the commitment that the district has, and I'm just reflecting from my experience working closely with the Energy Authority, and the district stated this is something that we would like to do, but did not have the internal resources to do it, and it really took the Energy Authority to move this initiative forward to get us to the point of where we are now with installing solar panels and other type of environmental efforts in various schools. So I will close with some concerns I have in reference to the commitment. I definitely hear your passion, but to say issues are about resources and priorities, it comes down to whether people want to do and spend the money to do it. And it still begs the question of something that the school district wants to do as a whole. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Please, just for clarity, you said that you've been in your current position for 3 months.
Correct.
How frequently already have you met with the leadership at the Office of Sustainability?
Oh, very frequent. I'd say multiple times per month, maybe even weekly, talking through emails and going to meetings.
Okay, so is that around a specific plan? Is that around a specific strategy? Is it around crafting strategy? What's the focus of the agenda?
I'd say two main focuses. One is on the initiatives that we are currently working on through Green Futures. So they have been with us from day one with regards to our subcommittee meetings where we are looking at our targets, goals, and actions and how we can attain those things. They've actually helped us develop. Rich was instrumental in developing Green Futures, particularly with the energy piece and the overall product itself. And then secondly, because of this legislation, we have met with them multiple times to talk about how we can really get there with this legislation, how we could really do it, strategizing, using their energy expertise to calculate numbers and figure out how to logistically do this. Can I just say one more thing? I want to mention something with the Philadelphia Energy Authority. Emily Shapira is one of our best partners, one of our greatest partners. She attends so many meetings with us. We've been working with her for several years. And we also partnered with the Philadelphia Energy Authority on a student Bright Futures program, which was a green energy pathway program that was spearheaded by PEA with Green Futures support. And that actually was such a successful program that it's being expanded now. And we
You say expanded, meaning expanded to other schools?
with more students, with an academic program being developed that is going to be sustainable and moving forward as a CTE initiative by the district with PEA. And Emily's
Okay.
here, who could speak more on that than I.
We'll invite her up. Please speak to you said that you have 38 programs registered
Yes.
so far in the environment and sustainability focus of the school district?
Yes. Yes, so our district is attempting to create green schools. Our goal through Green Futures is to make every school a green school. And one of the venues by which a school can do that is through adopting or signing up for or becoming a member of the National Wildlife Federation Eco
Okay,
Schools
stop right
program.
there, because
Yes,
you're giving
ma'am.
us a lot of information.
Okay, sorry.
What we know is this, is that where you have strong principles, you have better schools. And we all know that there are not 100% strong principles across the school district. I have my own anecdotal experiences. So these 38 schools, how do they become the lucky 38 schools?
Okay. It's usually by a teacher. So a teacher and it's amazing how attractive sustainability is to teachers. They really have an affinity towards making their schools green through many different ways.
So it's a voluntary
Yes.
option
Correct.
that teachers or principals can buy into.
Correct.
Okay. All right, any more questions from this panel? Okay, then. All right, well, thank you for the testimony. I would suggest that the school district and the Office of Sustainability keep this committee informed about your progress as it relates to this legislation, because it's clear that it's needed.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Panel number 2, Julian Boggs, Policy Director for Keystone Energy Efficiency Alliance. Alex Dews, Executive Director of the Green Building United. Megan O'Neill, Manager of City Solutions Institute for Market Transformation. And we would want panel 3 to tee up. That will be Lindsay Woloski, Project Engineer for Practical Energy Solutions. And Ho Lee Tai will be panel number 3. Good morning, and we'll start off with Julian Boggs, Policy Director for Keystone Energy Efficiency Alliance, to proceed with your testimony.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Jerome Reynolds Brown, members of the committee. My name is Julian Boggs. I'm the Policy Director at the Keystone Energy Efficiency Alliance, or KEA. KEA is a Pennsylvania-based trade association representing more than 60 members of the energy efficiency industry. And thanks for allowing me to speak today on the important issue of improving Philadelphia's energy efficiency. Today, the first Wednesday in October is Energy Efficiency Day, for those of you who don't know, and so it couldn't be a more opportune time. We strongly support Bill 190-600, the Building Energy Performance Policy. Investments in energy efficiency policy are a win-win, and I think we heard from the Office of Sustainability, and I think we all know the great benefits of energy efficiency. Just one more thing to put out there is that energy efficiency accounts for 29,000 jobs just in the Philadelphia metro area, according to the E2, E for the Future annual job census. I want to talk a little bit about the experience that we have, our members, helping businesses save energy. As energy engineers, consultants, energy service providers, many of our members would be involved in doing the work of the building tune-ups and identifying future projects for deeper energy savings. And we have a breadth of experience working with large commercial buildings and public sector buildings to improve comfort and performance while cutting energy use. We also have experience with the barriers that these buildings and institutions and companies face in achieving energy efficiency. And so those barriers include facility managers who are not incentivized to save energy. It's their job to keep things working. It's their job to ensure systems are functioning and repairs are made in a timely basis. They don't particularly get rewarded from energy savings down the line in many institutions. And then as we heard in our previous discussion, capital budgets can prioritize spending on the core business model or core institution functions over energy investments, even if those energy investments pay for themselves over time. And budgets are not always fungible between different programs. So even if those energy investments are contributing positively to the overall financial picture, it can be really difficult for public and private sector organizations to make those investments and prioritize them over other investments, because that's what this is all about. Despite these barriers, many large building owners have figured out how to integrate energy management and energy savings into their businesses, and we know this, Chairwoman, as you pointed out, thanks to your benchmarking legislation and to the progress that we've had. We can see now this data in Philadelphia. So if we're going to maximize our energy efficiency potential and meet our climate goals, more large buildings need to commit and they need to prioritize energy management as a core business practice. And sometimes this involves just changing the culture and changing the practices within institutions and within companies. And that needs policy to help them along the way. And in addition to the tangible benefits that this tune-ups legislation will have, helping shift that culture in more buildings and in more institutions is an important impact that this policy can have. We think that the building tune-ups described in the legislation are a very light touch requirement, almost the lightest touch one could imagine, that provide building owners with a gateway drug into prioritizing energy management while minimizing the financial burden. Once building owners take this first step, they can take advantage of a number of other strategies that have financial incentives attached to them. For example, PECO currently offers incentives for retro commissioning, which is a process similar to the building tune-ups. It requires more commitment from the building, and it might not be appropriate in every place, but it actually has incentives attached to it. And the legislation provides buildings who take advantage of that utility program an exemption from the building tune-ups. Additional incentives for building owners include the full breadth of PECO's Smart Ideas program. So in order to make deeper energy retrofits that can save more energy over time, PECO offers rebates and incentives for HVAC equipment, lighting upgrades, advanced controls for HVAC and lighting, and more. And then, of course, we've been talking about the Philadelphia Energy Authority, the soon-to-be-launched commercial property assessed clean energy program. Can offer long-term financing for energy efficiency and clean energy measures on the private sector market. And these, I think, are both programs mostly for deeper retrofits than we're envisioning here in the building tune-ups legislation. But once building owners take those deeper steps, there are incentives and financing available for them. So in sum, we think this legislation is important, necessary, and reasonable next step, building on the benchmarking legislation in advancing Philadelphia's progress toward meeting its energy efficiency and climate goals. And we would like to thank Chairwoman Reynolds Brown for introducing this important legislation and encourage members of the committee to vote to advance the bill. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your contribution. Good morning, Alex Dews. Welcome back.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairwoman Reynolds Brown. My name is Alex Dews. I'm Executive Director at Green Building United, and I want to start this morning by thanking the chair for her leadership on this committee for many years. There are a lot of really important sustainability efforts that have come out of this committee under your leadership, and you've always taken the time to engage with the broader community of stakeholders, even when we don't all agree with each other, to make sure that we get to the best possible outcome.
Yes.
So I really want to applaud that and thank you for all of your
I
support.
appreciate that.
So thank you also for the opportunity to provide testimony on behalf of Green Building United in support of Bill 190600, entitled Building Energy Performance Policy, which requires owners of certain large buildings to conduct tune-ups of their energy and water systems. Under Mayor Kenny's leadership and that of City Council, the city has committed to ambitious goals to cut carbon emissions 80% by 2050. And now we must continue to put programs in place that will help Philadelphia to reach those goals. This bill represents an important opportunity to advance commercial building efficiency in particular. And as we've heard already today, buildings and industry make up about 80% of the carbon emissions in Philadelphia, and most of this is coming from the building sector, so it's the biggest piece of the puzzle, the place that we need to focus, and a huge opportunity for improvement still in Philadelphia. We can have a direct and really significant impact on reducing local carbon emissions by improving the efficiency of the largest buildings, and doing that through tune-ups is a really sound practice and a great extension of the existing work that's happening with the benchmarking program. It was mentioned earlier that operator training is a really important part of this puzzle, so building operations, as much as capital improvements to buildings, are a really important place to focus, and this isn't something you can just do once and then walk away from it. A lot of it really does have to do with regular daily engagement with the building and making sure that all the systems are functioning correctly. And this is just going from the snapshot in time that we have from a benchmarking program, looking annually at how a building performed, to understanding not just how it performs, but why it's performing that way. So it's a really important next step to get that additional information into the hands of owners and tenants. So who benefits from this tune-up policy? The building owners obviously stand to benefit tremendously through the cost savings. We heard a little bit about return on investment already. And I did just want to point out that the case study that was used, the Juvenile Justice Center, is only 7 years old and was built to a LEED standard. So buildings that are on average 86 years old are going to have a lot more opportunity for additional savings. So I think that that estimate is actually quite conservative in terms of what the ROI would be across the board for buildings that undergo these assessments. So owners benefit, building occupants benefit, and that's meaningful in a lot of different contexts, whether it's a healthcare facility that can shorten the stays of patients because the building is operating more efficiently, or schools where students are more comfortable and can have a better learning environment, or office buildings where employees can also be comfortable and be more productive and have lower absenteeism. All of these things are backed up by long-term research that really underscores the additional value of building efficiency. The local economy also benefits, and in the city's Office of Sustainability's Powering Our Future report, building tune-up program was listed as having the potential to save $55 million citywide annually. So in summary, if we're looking at getting to 100% clean energy in Philadelphia and reducing carbon emissions to stay on target for our 80 by 50 goals, the fastest way to do that is through energy efficiency. Reducing demand is the quickest way to reach those clean energy goals. It's the right step at the right time for Philadelphia because it moves us from just having all that information about how buildings use energy to, as I said, understanding why they're using energy the way they are. And in working towards the city's really ambitious climate commitments, local government has a lot of influence and control over buildings policy and much less control over the citywide energy supply. So again, it's a really appropriate place to focus. And as the climate becomes more volatile, we see more extreme temperatures, like it being over 90 degrees today in October. It's really important to remember that building efficiency is also a resiliency practice.
Yes.
Our buildings need to be able to withstand the much greater extremes that we can expect as we go forward in this century. And then finally, as Julian pointed out, I think it's also really important to understand the huge economic opportunity workforce-wise that this represents. And in Pennsylvania's clean economy has advanced to the point where we've got almost 100,000 employees across the state working in clean energy. More than 75% of those are in energy efficiency. And I would say we're still just scratching the surface. And these are entry-level jobs through senior management jobs. It's a huge sector. It's a huge opportunity to grow the sector. And this, again, I think points in the right direction for all of that. So a lot more detail in my written testimony on some specifics of implementation and some ideas for tweaks and improvements in regulation that we think could make this even better. But thank you again for the opportunity to testify.
Very welcome. I have some follow-up questions, but we'll first wait to hear from Megan O'Neill, Manager of City Solutions Institute for Market Transformation.
Good morning, Chair Member Reynolds Brown and members of committee. I'm Megan O'Neill, Manager of City Solutions for the Institute for Market Transformation. I am here to testify in support of Bill number 190600, which would establish a tune-up requirement for large non-residential buildings in Philadelphia. The Institute of Market Transformation, IMT, is a national nonprofit organization that promotes energy efficiency in buildings. As you know, the City of Philadelphia is a participant in the Bloomberg American Cities Climate Challenge, which provides support to 25 cities in the United States on enacting programs to reduce carbon emissions. IMT is acting as an advisor to the cities in this challenge program on building energy efficiency performance programs. Philadelphia is a leader in the U.S. when it comes to energy efficiency. You were one of the earliest cities to enact an energy benchmarking and transparency policy, and numerous cities across the country have followed your lead by passing similar policies. The retuning policy before you today demonstrates continued leadership in this space. Benchmarking and transparency policies have the benefit of making energy performance data available to the public and of providing the city with information on the energy efficiency of its buildings. The logical and reasonable next step is to require buildings to have tune-ups to improve their energy performance. Cities including Seattle, Washington, Los Angeles, California, and New York City, New York have enacted retuning or retrocommissioning policies similar to what you are considering today in recent years. Retuning policies focus on low to no cost efficiency improvements, which lead to instant cost and energy savings for building owners. Targeting these impactful low cost improvements will help create a culture of energy efficiency among Philadelphia's building owners by undertaking measures that benefit their bottom line. In the coming years, the city will benefit from that culture to advance energy efficiency and to achieve the city's climate goals. This policy will also help create energy efficiency jobs in the city, helping to build a skilled workforce of professionals to conduct building improvements that lead to energy savings and climate benefits. Buildings represent the greatest source of carbon emissions in the city, and this bill is a critical step to reducing those emissions. It's for that reason that IMT supports this bill. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You are welcome. Alex Dews, is there any interface with the School District of Philadelphia in the way that you are articulated? I'd like to hear from both you and Julian Boggs on
Sure. Yeah,
please.
so our organization, Green Building United, has been engaged with the Green Futures program since its inception, and Francine and Megan's leadership on that has been really impressive of building it from nothing into something that is really impacting a lot of schools and a lot of students. The way that we have interfaced most recently is really just as an outside advocate, but we've had discussions about the opportunity specifically around building operator training and bringing that to the school district if it's something that can fit into the program, finding the right way to make that available. I think it's a huge opportunity to have that workforce that maintains and operates all of the buildings in the district, to have that ongoing education opportunity to get the most out of the buildings that they have, and then as the buildings go through regular improvements, to continue to get the most out of them, because there are new technologies and new ways of operating buildings that it's important to stay up to speed on. So in the past, our organization, actually in partnership with IMT, has developed a curriculum, and with the Office of Sustainability, developed a curriculum that was designed specifically to educate City of Philadelphia building operators on building operations training, and we've held a number of trainings in Philadelphia as well as outside of the city and in the state of Delaware that have been really well received and are very accessible to building operations staff. Typically, a lot of the professional certifications are a week long and very expensive, and we try to tailor our training to the needs and the schedules of people that are actually responsible for keeping the lights on in a building. So we have half-day modules and a one-day training that gets people, up to speed on the latest in building science, and we'd be very receptive to further discussion on how to make that available to as many people as possible, and specifically in the school district.
I'm trying to get a handle on whether there's a very structured, intentional effort to train the building operators for the school district of Philadelphia. I mean, given the return on investment that has been well articulated. So how does it happen? Does a principal call and say, I want it? Does a school district division that deals with this call and say, we need it? How does it happen?
I don't think I'm in the best position to answer
Okay.
operationally how that happens for the
All
school
right.
district. I think, again, as an advocate, it's something that we understand there are cost constraints, but because the opportunity is there to train 30, 40 people at a time, providing some trainings, I think, could be a small cost, great benefit for the district. And I know that they've got a lot of large-scale efficiency projects happening already, which is fantastic. And I think this is a really nice, much smaller but really important complement to that. Anything you want to add, Julian?
Please, Julian?
Just very quickly, as a statewide association, we haven't had much direct interface with the Philadelphia School District on this, but for the last several years, we've run a program called the Moving to the Head of the Class Awards, where we've highlighted school districts and school facilities across the state who have are both either energy efficiency leaders or have made huge strides in advancing energy efficiency. And there have been a couple factors that are common across those school districts. And I think the biggest is just the cooperation from passionate building managers who are the ones who get this work done, but don't get recognized for it and are often working on their own without much of a support network. And then support from principals and administration. And it really takes everyone, especially those three pieces.
It all starts with leadership. That's my training.
Yeah, so that's what we've seen.
Recognizing that I don't know, except for maybe parts of Allegheny County, there are other districts at the scale of the city of Philadelphia. Are there any districts in the southeastern region that are leaders in the way that you just defined in this space?
Not off the top of my head, but yes. And frankly, a lot of them have a lot more money than the Philadelphia School District does, so it's not apples and oranges.
That being what it is.
Yeah.
There are a few leading districts in Pennsylvania, and also our organization runs a Pathways to Green Schools program in Delaware that is funded by the Sustainable Energy Utility in Delaware that provides audits to schools. And because things need to happen at the district level, we found it's often people on the finance and business management side of the operations that are really focused on implementing the recommendations that come out of the energy audits that we provide. But without that leadership, it can be really difficult. But I'd be happy to follow up with a couple of case studies that are good examples of how districts have embraced this and worked it into their capital planning and budgeting. Retuning in particular, continuous commissioning, these kinds of things are becoming more and more common practice.
I would welcome that, and I mean, given the interest raised by Councilman Green and Councilwoman Gim, there's definitely opportunity to connect the important work that you do with the needed work at the school district. And when you hear from Councilman Green that in many ways efforts or initiatives to uptick the level of engagement, how he has had to sometimes find other means to get it done, you all can be the connector in ensuring that progress along this space happens more aggressively, especially given the return on investment. So thank you for the work that you do. Councilman Green, any comment? No? All right then. Thank you. Please, Lindsay Woloski, Project Engineer for Practical Energy Solutions, and please help me with the pronunciation of Holy Tai? Howley Tai. Okay, thank you. Next up would be Pratima Agrawal, Mino Ravel, Dave Moscatello, Jim Wiley. Thank you. Proceed with your testimony.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Chairwoman Reynolds Brown and the members of the Committee on the Environment. Thank you for the opportunity to provide support for Bill 190600. My name is Lindsay Woloski. I'm a project engineer with Practical Energy Solutions. We are a local energy consulting firm working in the greater Philadelphia area. And we've been around for about 13 years and have within that time been probably within 500 buildings. So based on that experience, we have really grown the business of doing retuning. With the advancement of control systems, we really see value in making adjustments, making low-cost improvements to the building, and really support the tune-up process as a cost-effective investment in existing buildings. Because most of the measures that are achieved through the tune-up process are mainly through existing equipment and existing control systems. A lot of the changes can be implemented low cost with low payback, as mentioned before. There's also a lot of indirect benefits for making these changes. A lot of the changes typically include reducing the operation time for equipment, which is really helpful for business owners because it's a longer replacement time that they would need to replace a lot of these major equipment systems. Rich had a good analogy of comparing a tune-up of a building to a tune-up of a car. If you were to use your car more often, you would need to replace it more frequently. And in that same vein, if you're going to use your mechanical systems more efficiently and less often, as you would through the retuning process, you would need to replace those major equipments less frequently. So we see this as a really good benefit to the business owners. A big focus of the tune-up process is also indoor air quality. So we see a lot of these changes can be made without interrupting the building occupants. The other point I'd want to make on investment in existing buildings is the existing building stock that we have in Philadelphia is that we'll see by 2050 is pretty much already here. About two-thirds of the buildings that will be around in 2050 are already here. So it's a really, really great investment to make in existing buildings. As a final note, Practical Energy Solutions is super excited to be a part of the workforce to implement the retuning process. We really value the work and making impacts in the city. Something else that we can also do is, as an added resource, is provide training for other tune-up specialists. As mentioned before by Alex and Rich, the building operator trainings is something that we help partner with them and actually put on for operations and maintenance staffs in Delaware. So it's something that we can also provide as a resource to you to make sure that the tune-ups provided as part of this legislation are done well and meet the standards of the Office of Sustainability. So thank you for your time this morning and for listening to my support for this bill.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Howley Tai. I'm with the Climate Mobilization, an organization calling for climate emergencies to be declared across the country and mobilizing the country on a World War II scale in order to reach zero emissions in the next 10 years. I'm speaking today in support of Bill 190600, indeed all three bills. We support any legislation that will move us along the path of decreasing carbon emissions and increasing the energy efficiency of city buildings will be an important component of any plan to decrease carbon emissions. The Building Energy Performance Plan is an important step toward reaching the city's clean energy vision and the goals as specified in the Ready for 100 resolution passed last Thursday. However, it doesn't go far enough. It doesn't even live up to the city's own 2018 Clean Energy Vision timeline for the largest carbon-emitting sector in Philadelphia, buildings. And the bill is not the only thing that doesn't go far enough. I appreciate the intent of City Council in passing the Ready for 100 resolution last week, but in the face of the climate emergency we are facing, the 12 years that the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report estimates we have to take urgent action before global warming effects become irreversible, we believe it's time for City Council to declare a climate emergency, like the more than 1,000 local governments around the world, and mobilize to decrease emissions to net zero in the next 10 years. Hurricane and storm damage in Philadelphia have both taken lives and left thousands of people without power for days on end, not to mention incurring millions of dollars in damages. Multiple heat waves have also taken their toll on lives, not to mention other adverse health effects on city residents. In 2016, Pennsylvania was fourth in the nation in total amount of carbon emissions. Instead of being one of the most polluting states, a 10-year zero emissions goal and plan will model for the state what is possible in leading the way towards a sustainable future and send a message to those thousands of young people striking 2 weeks ago Friday that we do care about their future. The alternative is too bleak, given the predictions of scientists worldwide about what our future holds if we don't take urgent action in the next 10 years. Philadelphia is a beautiful city. We have big city, big challenges, but we also have so much to treasure. Let's treasure our people, our city, and our planet. Thanks for taking the time to listen.
We thank you both for your testimony. Please. Thank you both for your testimony. We'll now please move to the fourth panel. Please. Yeah. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Please have a seat at the table. And please pronounce your full names for the record, starting from my extreme right.
Good morning. My name is
Pull the mic close to you
Pratima
so you can be
Agarwal.
comfortable. Pull the mic closer to you. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Councilwoman Brown and committee. My name is Pratima Agarwal. I'm a resident of Philadelphia and a volunteer with the Philadelphia Ready for 100 campaign of the Sierra Club. For the past 3 years, Philadelphia Ready for 100 has been advocating for the city to transition all its energy to 100% clean renewable sources in an equitable way. Last week's passage of Resolution 190728, which, among other things, sets specific goals for Philadelphia and 100% clean energy transition, finally brings our city into an alignment with other major cities across the country who have already passed 100% resolutions and makes Philadelphia the 139th city to commit to 100% citywide. I want to thank City Council for taking this first step in the right direction and for introducing Bill number 190600, a non-residential building energy tune-up policy that will help to realize the goals of the resolution. I also want to thank the Office of Sustainability for its leadership in developing the Municipal Energy Master Plan and the Clean Energy Vision, both of which are supported by the 100% resolution. At the same time, I want to reiterate to City Council that the resolution specifically sets a 100% goal for all energy citywide by 2050 or sooner. Those last two words may seem insignificant, but they are representative of the climate emergency that we are in. We do not have 30 years to get ourselves off of fossil fuels. We do not have 30 years to become more energy efficient, and we certainly do not have 30 years for the most vulnerable people in our city to finally have a livable community. It is unjustifiable for the city to ever approve of another fossil fuel project from this day forward. There is a climate crisis at our doorsteps, and thousands of Philadelphia residents and youth stood at your doorsteps on September 20th to demand action. And not just any action, but bold and swift action. We hope that you heard those voices, and we hope that you will work with stakeholders across the city to do what is required to not only meet, but exceed the goals of the resolution. Thank you, and I'm going to turn it over to the other members of Ready for 100.
Good morning.
Yeah, hi, I'm Meenal Raval, an active member of Phillies Ready for 100. I also write an energy column for Grid magazine. I feel I have better energy standing. Okay, away. All right. I also write an energy column for Grid magazine and produce a weekly radio show, Philly Talks Climate. Today is October 2nd. Mahatma Gandhi was born 150 years ago today. Gandhi is known for satyagraha, sticking to the truth, and ahimsa, nonviolence towards all living things. In the US, ahimsa, or nonviolence, has been used by many activists. I'd like to expand nonviolence to the climate movement, to saving the ecosystem that we all call home. In light of this, of course, I support Bill number 190600. known as the Building Energy Performance Policy. Regularly checking on thermostats, motion sensors, HVAC systems, and more could save the owners money, use less energy and water, and reduce emissions. They also make the space more comfortable. How many times have you complained about an auditorium, a library, or an office space being too warm or too cold? In reading this bill, though, it seems the Office of Sustainability would be reviewing the energy usage of 2,000 or more large buildings. If you want this bill to succeed, this office may need additional staffing. I'd like to remind this committee that the Building Energy Performance Policy is but one component of our bigger ask to transition our entire city to renewable energy as soon as possible that all of Council voted upon last week. Bill number 190728, also known as the Ready for 100 resolution. A recent report titled Halfway There shows how the U.S. can reduce emissions by 50% by just being smart, by focusing on energy efficiency. We'll be looking at the policy suggestions on that report and plan to have a list ready for when this committee meets again with a new chair. A hint of what those could be are zero energy buildings could reduce emissions by 11%. This is for new buildings, whether residential or commercial, which can be built so they don't need much energy. How? Make them tight, make them electric, and what little energy they need would be electricity from rooftop panels. Policy-wise, this translates to all new construction being electric only, with no gas hookups and, of course, rooftop solar. Building improvements account for about 14% emissions reductions, whether tune-ups like being discussed today or smart buildings or heating with electricity instead of gas. About 30% of our emissions reductions can be had by encouraging more fuel-efficient cars. The most fuel-efficient cars are, of course, electric cars. Policy-wise, this means massive build-out of public EV charging stations at underutilized parking lots, churches, schools, and of course, grocery stores and hospitals. Yesterday's article in the Inquirer with me showing off my electric car was a start towards this policy. We could have 16% emissions reductions by reducing our vehicle miles traveled and by flying less. This means encouraging walking, cycling, using SEPTA, and telecommuting. I love those Zoom calls. It also shows about, calls for being smart about how we move our stuff around. As we loop in other groups, we are hearing that we need to move faster on this timeline. So though we've agreed on 2030, 2035, and 2050 as our milestones, when we put our ear to the ground, we hear that we'll need to move fast, much faster, with sooner timelines like 2030. You heard two people just say that, to do away with all emissions and power only with clean, renewable energy sources. Are you ready? We sure are ready for 100%. In closing, I'd like to thank you all and all your assistants and teams for running with us, for getting the Ready for 100 resolution introduced and passed in Council. I look forward to working you all come January. Thank you.
I have to learn to stop following Meenal.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. State your name.
My
for the
name is
record.
David Moscatello from West Philly, and I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to testify today. I'd first like to express my thanks again to Council for passing Resolution 190728, setting a 100% renewable energy goal by 2050, and importantly, 100% municipal electricity by 2030 and citywide electricity by 2035. These interim goals are critical, and we'll need to set additional ones as we move forward, because we know that we have to achieve at least a 50% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions to have a hope of keeping warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius, and at least 30% by 2030 to even keep it below 2 degrees Celsius. We hope that Resolution 190728 will also inspire better statewide renewable energy policies, such as community solar, aggregated community choice, extending Act 129 for improved energy efficiency that can help families reduce their energy bill, create jobs and job training for local residents in impacted communities, and extending and improving the alternative energy portfolio standard. As a result, Philadelphia will be better positioned to achieve the critical goals we've committed to achieve. And regardless of the actions at the state level, setting these goals for transition into clean renewable energy makes sense at the municipal level, and not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it will make Philadelphia a better home for all residents. Regarding Bill 190600, since, as others have noted, buildings consume about 80% of the energy used in the city, And the EPA reports that on average about 30% of that energy is wasted, and for a lot of our older buildings, it's much worse than that. Achieving significant energy savings and greenhouse gas emission reductions must address building energy efficiency. The cheapest source of new energy is still energy efficiency, and efficiency is forever. So we fully support this bill as it will contribute to the goal of transition to clean renewable energy in the building sector. And of course, as also noted, today is Energy Efficiency Day, so it's a perfect time to consider this. And this tune-up is very critical, as has been mentioned. We really don't want to see people having to use space heaters in their offices in the summertime because they're too cold, or open their windows in the winter because they're too hot. That's just, yeah, I remember my father used to tell me, you trying to heat the neighborhood or just the house, right? We certainly wholeheartedly support this bill and how it may move us forward. I'll just try and wrap things up here, and I just want to emphasize that we can achieve the goals that we've set forward, given, and it's getting cheaper all the time. The costs of solar, wind, and energy storage have been plummeting even faster than the biggest boosters of solar power. It was predicted that solar would only achieve 25 cents per watt for a module after we achieved 8 terawatts of power. We're at about a quarter of, 500 gigawatts right now. But it's already there. It's already there. Pennsylvania has plenty of power. Pennsylvania exports more electricity than any other state outside of our borders. So the closing of 3 Mile Island, the smallest reactor, doesn't matter. I'd also note that Pennsylvania also ranks second in the nation after Illinois in nuclear power generating capacity. Not that I'm a big fan of that, but the existing plants will be there to facilitate our conversions to renewable energy. We'll close those coal plants first, then the gas plants, then we'll worry about the nukes. So again, I'd just like to thank Council for passing the renewable energy resolution, and again to express our support for the building energy clean tune-up bill. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And the enthusiasm of the 4 of you is contagious. Thank you. Please, sir.
Yes. Hello. Good morning. My name is Jim Wiley. I'm the chair of the Southeast Pennsylvania group. I'm a volunteer, as of all these other yellow-shirted people. I'd like to thank the City Council for passing their Ready for 100 resolution last week, and thank our volunteers for helping to craft the language that got it over the hill. I help with Ready for 100 initiatives in this whole region, and I want to make sure you guys know that of the 140, Fatima mentioned that Philadelphia is 139th in the country. Wow. So 140 across the country, right, have set goals. 25 of them are in Southeast Pennsylvania, so the greater Philadelphia area. And in those other communities, from Chester County, Delaware County, Montgomery County, what they don't have are an Office of Sustainability, like the City of Philadelphia has. They don't have full-time municipal employees working on planning and looking for opportunities for energy transition and energy efficiency. So I just want to recap that the importance of setting goals, making plans, and taking logical action. And the urgency. We've also heard about the urgency in the developing solutions in this arena. Not only has the City of Philadelphia developed a vision for doing this transition, they've made concrete plans for the city municipal buildings to do a transition, and taken actual steps like the 70 megawatt deal for the solar power plant in Western Pennsylvania. There are going to be besides this bill today that we're talking about, there are going to be other proposals to come before you. And I would like to suggest that we need to make sure we listen to all the voices, all the stakeholders that are impacted by all of these what could be disruptive actions that we take as we transition and reduce our efficiency. Other cities have created stakeholder groups to kind of get input. Of course, all these stakeholder groups aren't going to agree on what kind of pizza to have for dinner, let alone what kind of legislation we should pass. But it's important that we make sure we try and listen to all of the stakeholders, the city government, residents, the businesses, utilities, developers, labor, and of course, the youth, as we heard last week, loud and clear that we're screwing up this planet for the future inhabitants. And then we've got a long list of environmental groups that would like to have a seat at the table. I'd like to start this conversation about how we can facilitate that kind of stakeholder group, whether it's with the mayor's office, with a council person's office. We'd be happy to, the Ready for 100 group would be happy to take the lead on trying to call some meetings on how we can dedicate resources to facilitate a stakeholders group in Philadelphia, right? I'd like to, have that conversation with anybody that'll listen about who should be at the table, how we convene it, what resources we need. Other cities have done it with third-party groups sponsored by various institutions. They've done it through the mayor's office, through the council, or through environmental organizations. Finally, I'd like to end with a little story. A couple years ago, I was at a family reunion, and we were playing cornhole, and somebody invited one of the 5-year-olds to come up and play, and he threw the beanbag like everybody else was, carefully aiming, but it only got halfway to the target, right? So somebody said to him, "Johnny, throw it like you mean it," right? So every time after that, he would stand up straight and say, "I mean it," and he would throw the beanbag. All right, it only got 3/4 of the way after there, but he was 5 years old. So I just want to make it clear that that's what we're doing today with this resolution is we're standing up, stating our objectives, and saying we mean it, and we're going to do our best to achieve these goals. Thank you.
Well, all of the volunteers need to be celebrated. I had the good fortune to, I'll say, hang out with members of the Sierra Club a year or two ago.
Yep, at the Ethical Society.
Yes. That was a wonderful, that really wasn't, it was not an event, it was an experience. So I want to just say how much I completely enjoyed myself. Facts matter, so thank you for the facts and how you've placed and where you've stacked Philadelphia against other municipalities. And I would like to, not at this time, but certainly when she is at the table, Christine Knapp, to speak to and comment on the interest with regards to us having the 150, help me out, what's the full name?
Ready for 100.
Ready for 100. So because of the leadership position that she holds, I believe she's most appropriate and positioned to comment on that very, very legitimate ask.
Okay.
The same with stakeholder groups. That's an opportunity,
Right.
and I'll look to my colleagues to figure out how and what that looks like. And let me say thank you also for just continuously, consistently being what I call a gnat in a good way, because gnat, ultimately, they get the attention they require, and working with my office, bringing issues like this to the table. Please.
I have a comment about the discussion with the school district earlier, and maybe I missed it, but at my bike shop, we called in the Pico Smart Energy guys to look at our lighting, and they changed it. But in the financing is what I want to talk about. They offered us a 12-month interest-free loan to do that. Now, my tab was only under $1,500, but we're talking $1.5 million. Maybe they can offer that loan to the school district to implement the savings they were talking about. In which case, the $3 million or so that we talk about saving, that's annually. That can go back to future energy efficiency projects and or solar on the rooftops kind of projects. So don't go spending it for everything else for the school district.
Yeah.
But this loan from PICO could be a good first step to get you guys, the school district, going.
Where it needs to
So
be.
I just wanted to take a personal example and make it bigger.
It shows application.
Yeah.
Absolutely. it certainly has value, and I would suggest that you become intimately involved with the project at the school district. I forget what it's called now.
I want to meet with Francine, yes.
Terrific. Okay, then.
Thank you.
Councilman Green?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank the panel for your comments. Mr. Ball, your comment about PICO goes back to the crux of what I was saying regarding the school district, where we're trying to get them to move forward on some of the ESCO projects that would save them money. They had an interest but a reluctance because they was not prioritizing people to work on the project. It wasn't until the Energy Authority got involved to get us to the point we're at. And I think that's part of my challenge and concern regarding the lack of prioritization at times and devoting resources. But we will continue to have that conversation going forward. Mr. Wiley, you talked about a number of jurisdictions in the Commonwealth that do not, and probably because of their size, do not have an Office of Sustainability. Has there been any conversations with any of the statewide organizations that focus on local municipalities from either the Pennsylvania Municipal League or the County Commission Association of Pennsylvania to see if they can have an office themselves devoted to sustainability that can provide assistance or resources or other help to smaller jurisdictions that don't have the capacity to have a sustainability office?
Certainly there is a discussion at the state level about very, very similar goal setting, not only with the governor, but through legislation. It's a tough ask in the state of Pennsylvania, but certainly they're doing that. To your specific question about finding structures that can help us, I live in Westchester, in Chester County. They don't even have an environmental advisory board, let alone an Office of Sustainability. But we have made progress if we frame it in the terms of finding ways to help the municipalities that want to take this step, not mandating what municipalities need to do. So we're making progress on that, yes, but there's certainly nobody's opening up a checkbook and offering to pay for energy transition planning.
Okay. I serve as the second vice president for the Pennsylvania Municipal League. This is something that I will bring up with our executive director and staff in reference to what steps can we do, because I know historically Pennsylvania Municipal League, which is our Pennsylvania affiliate of the National League of Cities, and I'm also very active in National League of Cities. They've taken steps in the past to provide resources and ways that smaller municipalities can do things cooperatively, either through purchasing of goods and services. That's something that the National League of Cities does as a model, and also Pennsylvania Municipal League does that. So I will see what steps that can be taken, at least to have a committee conversation to start that initiative, because I would venture there are jurisdictions that have an interest, but they just don't have the ability. So if the Pennsylvania Municipal League or through National League of Cities, there's ways that we can start bringing some resources together and at least identifying what other jurisdictions have done in other parts of the country. Also, the County Commission Association and Philadelphia being both a city and a county is also part of that organization. I'm not as active in the County Commissioners Association, Pennsylvania, but they're also part of the National Association of County Officers. But I do get some of their correspondence, so that could be another opportunity as well.
Awesome.
Okay.
I wasn't
One
aware of
other
that.
question I had for Mr. Moscatello. You talked about how Pennsylvania is a large exporter of energy.
Of electricity.
Of electricity.
And also, actually, of course, now natural gas. And
right. So can you give me, on the electricity perspective, give me some more context to that, and how can that energy not be exported but kept within the Commonwealth to offset some of those other type of energy uses like coal or fossil fuels?
Right. I guess my point about the export is simply that we're already producing much more energy than electricity, I'm speaking of, than we use, and therefore that just makes it easier to achieve 100% renewables, because we can replace coal plants as they are being closed with wind and solar developments. We don't necessarily have to replace all of the generation that's being closed. Pennsylvania in 2018 got 39%, produced 39% of the electricity in Pennsylvania was nuclear. So it's already carbon-free, as I note that Sierra Club is not in favor of nuclear power, but it still exists. They have the license, they're operating. We're part of the PJM grid, so we're exporting it to other people, but I mention this also because we need to shut these coal plants, but being part of the same grid as a lot of other states, everywhere from coastal North Carolina to Chicago, is this PJM grid. Every coastal state from North Carolina to New Jersey is planning huge offshore wind farms, and a couple have already been licensed. Current administration is throwing some roadblocks at them, but that will not last. So we'll readily have other sources of clean, renewable electricity being added to the grid that can replace the coal plants that we need to close as quickly as possible in this state. So the fact that we export electricity just means that, yeah, we do not have to replace every megawatt that we shut down, and that is made even easier by energy efficiency bills like 190-600, which reduces the amount we need in the future, essentially forever. Actually, what's going to really happen is that the electric companies are going to get so desperate to sell more electricity that they're going to get behind and start building out electric vehicle charging stations so they can sell this stuff. Those vehicles will also become part of the grid. Experiments have already been done in California, for example, showing that with BMW electric vehicles and showing that the vehicles themselves plugged in at home or at work can be grid resources. And then after those batteries don't have enough charge for driving the vehicle, doesn't matter if they're down to only 60% capacity, they can be used as stationary grid resources as well. So I guess the point I'm making is that we can most assuredly achieve these goals without risking the electric supply of Pennsylvania or of the entire grid area. I mean, it's always windy somewhere between Kitty Hawk and the Windy City.
And thank you for the commentary about some of the coastal wind opportunities. Actually, my sister lives in California. She's actually on her second electric car. But it seems like the western part of the country is much further along in reference to the technology, in reference to electrifying everything, especially using some of the technology. I know Tesla and others are trying to do all kinds of concepts in reference to more electric capacity in homes, not only for a car, but a whole household. Do you see some of those other opportunities, especially from a wind perspective, beyond just the coastal areas of North Carolina and further south, moving further north?
Well, there are other wind farms being planned further north. Of course, New York has its own plan. They're going to build huge offshore wind farms. They're on a different grid than we are. However, I should note that there's also work being done on high voltage direct current transmission, which is more efficient than alternating current transmission, that can be used to connect grids that are not synchronized, because, say, the PJM grid would convert it to DC, and that would transport somewhere else, and they'd convert it back to AC. It can work in both directions. So that is what connects the Canadian grid from their hydro up to, say, New England. They can use high voltage direct current, and there are also a couple of other lines that are being pushed throughout the nation that may ultimately let us connect the West Coast to the East Coast. Turns out that the practical limit for HVDC is 3,000 miles. California to the East Coast. We could ultimately, in as little as a decade or more, be having California sunshine powering us while we're having dinner here by connecting these different grids. And I should also note, with respect to the wind development, that Philadelphia has an opportunity to benefit from offshore wind development if we get on the ball soon. That offshore wind development is going to need maintenance. It's going to need ships to take the parts out there. The towers and the rotors are far too large to transport over land, so they have to be constructed onshore. We got a boatyard. We got space that's about to open up for potential manufacturing and so forth, and we should look very much into seeing if we can get those jobs for some of those jobs for Philadelphia, because if we don't, they're going to go to New Jersey or Delaware.
Just real quickly, I wanted to mention that the role that Philadelphia and Southeast Pennsylvania can play in that kind of transition is choosing to spend our energy dollars on the clean stuff, right? So instead of just paying our PICO bill every month, we can choose to purchase renewable energy. And that will force those markets to happen that Dave's talking about.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very, very welcome. Your knowledge base and your intellect around this issue is quite admirable. So please never say die.
Yeah.
Keep fighting.
Certainly
Thank you very much.
treat us as a resource, and I hope we can get a photo up after the hearing.
Yes, absolutely. As the clerk reads the title of the next bill, I'll give my my opening remarks, call up the first panel. If you all would, if the members of the Sierra Club would position yourselves over here, then we'll attempt to walk on water and chew gum at the same time, okay? If clerk, please read the title of the next bill.
Bill number 190636, an ordinance amending section 3/207 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Sale of Fuel Oil to revise the standards for permissible grades and permissible sulfur content of commercial fuel oil under certain terms and conditions.
Bill number 190636 makes a change to our air quality regulations to phase out the use of heavy fuel oils. Thank you, Commissioner.
You ready for him?
I'm not finished yet. I just need to say thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Fuel oils are assigned numbers according to their weight. That's an important fact. Fuel oils are assigned numbers according to their weight. Number 2 is the light fuel oil, while numbers 4, 5, and 6 are heavy oils. Heavy oils contain more sulfur, and burning these oils are linked with asthma, heart disease, and lung disease. In 2011, New York City began to phase out the use of heavy oils, which contributed to 86% of the soot pollution in our city, in their city. The new rules have been associated with significant improvements in air quality. Thank you again to Health Commissioner Tom Farley for bringing this new issue to our attention and giving us the opportunity to seize the moment and act on it. And with that, we'll move to testimony from Dr. Thomas Farley, our City's Commissioner for the Department of Public Health, and Joseph Minot. Welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Executive Director and Chief Counsel for the Clean Air Council. Please proceed, Dr. Farley.
Good morning, Chairwoman Reynolds Brown and members of the Committee on the Environment. I'm Dr. Thomas Farley, Commissioner for the Philadelphia Department of Public Health. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on Bill number 190636, which would limit the burning of heavy fuel oils in Philadelphia. We support this bill because it would reduce air pollution and protect public health in Philadelphia. Fuel oils are used to heat buildings and other facilities. Fuel oils are assigned different numbers, number 1 through 6, based on their weight, with the higher numbers indicating heavier oils. Number 4 and heavier fuel oils contain high amounts of sulfur and other impurities that, when burned, produce higher levels of soot pollution, known as particulate matter, or PM 2.5. as well as sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, and heavy metals such as nickel and mercury. These pollutants are hazardous to health and also contribute to the formation of ozone, which itself is a health hazard. In addition, these emissions affect the ability of Philadelphia to attain and maintain national standards for air quality. Exposure to high amounts of these air pollutants is linked to a number of negative health and environmental effects. In particular, exposure to nitrogen oxide, sulfur oxide, and PM 2.5s have been linked to increased rates of heart disease and lung disease, including asthma, and shorter life expectancy. Currently, Philadelphia Code 3207 limits the sulfur content of number 2 fuel oil sold, stored, and used in Philadelphia. Bill number 190636 would amend this section of the law to prohibit the burning of number 4, 5, and 6, or heavier fuel oil in Philadelphia, as well as prohibit the sale and storage of these heavy fuel oils if they are to be burned in Philadelphia. Under the bill, facilities that have already purchased these fuel oils would have until July 1st, 2024 to use these stocks. There are very few facilities in Philadelphia that currently use these heavy fuel oils. Because of current fuel prices, those that do are likely to save money by switching to natural gas or other less polluting energy sources. Bill number 190636 will help Philadelphia by encouraging the few remaining heavy oil users to switch to these cleaner fuels and by preventing any facility from switching back to heavy fuel oils if the price of these fuel oils drops below the price of natural gas in the future. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Well, thank you so much, Councilwoman. I appreciate it. My name is Joe Minett, and I am the Executive Director and Chief Counsel of the Clean Air Council, and it is a pleasure to be back before this committee again. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on Bill number 109636, which would finally phase out the use of heavy fuel oils in Philadelphia. The Council strongly supports passage of this bill. The proposed landmark ban on the use and sale of commercial heavy fuel oil in Philadelphia will lead over time to sizable improvements in air quality that will reduce harmful soot and sulfur pollution, as well as maintain reduction in carbon pollution that fuels the climate crisis. This is exactly the type of policy needed throughout all sectors of our economy so that we can rapidly phase out the use of all fossil fuels. Given the lack of leadership in addressing environmental health issues at the national level, it is up to state and local governments to take the action needed to protect the public from the environmental health impacts from air pollution. Thank you for your leadership on this important issue. Banning number 4 and heavier fuel for use in any facility in the city will reduce harmful air pollution and ensure that thousands of tons of previous emission reductions stay permanent. It is important that the city move as quickly as possible to phase out the use of heavy fuel oils to prevent facilities from switching back to these oils should it become less expensive to do so. Harmful pollutants associated with burning 4 and 6 fuel oils used in commercial and residential furnaces, boilers, and other combustion units include sulfur dioxide, particulate matter 2.5, nitrogen oxides, mercury, and nickel. This pollution negatively impacts our air and quality and the health of Philadelphia residents. The combustion of sulfur-containing commercial fuel oil releases sulfur dioxide emissions, which oxidizes in the atmosphere to form sulfate particulates that significantly contribute to the formation of fine particulate matter, PM 2.5, and regional haze. I'm going to skip a lot of the medical part since you have more of an expert here than me and get to the bottom line. The Philadelphia area is currently in attainment of the National Ambient Air Standards for PM 2.5. Phasing out number 4 and heavier fuel oil will result in emission reductions that will help Philadelphia come into compliance with the National Ambient Air Quality Standards for ozone, smog, that continues to plague the city, the region, in summertime. Maintain compliance with the National Ambient Air Quality Standards set for other pollutants like PM 2.5 and comply with federal regional haze standards. Climate change is an existential threat to our health and quality of life and the most pressing issue for our time. According to the recent IPCC report, we only have 11 years to cut greenhouse gas emissions 45% to avoid catastrophic climate change. This ban will secure the carbon reduction the city has already achieved by preventing users of heavy oils from being able to switch from using natural gas, which has lower carbon dioxide, back to heavy oils. The majority of facilities that operate furnaces, boilers, heaters in Philadelphia do not use number 4 or heavier oil. This means the cost of banning these types of fuel oils will be minimal and will help permanently secure the emission reductions that have already taken place. The stock of ultra-low sulfur distillate oil, 15 parts per million, in Pennsylvania has increased significantly over the last decade, so it is currently available to meet these standards. Finally, under this bill, facilities in Philadelphia that have already purchased these heavy fuel oils would have until July 1st, 2024 to use their stocks, and even then could petition Air Management Services beyond 2024. I would not be the director of the Clean Air Council if I didn't have one gripe, and that gripe is we think that is too generous a phase-out period, and the City Council might want to consider a shorter one. While the Council wholeheartedly supports this ban on heavy fuel oils, it also recognizes that the use of ultra-low sulfur oil and natural gas is likely to marginally increase as a result. While the local air pollution benefits are impossible to ignore, the Council urges City Council to continue to pass additional legislation that fully transition all sectors in Philadelphia, all fossil fuel usage as soon as possible, ideally by 2035. but by no later than 2050. I could be wearing a yellow shirt right now. Thank you for taking this action. I urge members of the Environment Committee to pass this bill out of committee and for all of City Council members to support this bill. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. And Councilwoman, I will truly miss you.
My heart very happy. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Commissioner, how long did it take New York to implement this measure? And do you recall any major hurdles or barriers they had to tackle to put this in place?
What I remember is there being lots of discussion with current users, current at that time, users of heavy oil, about the phase-out period and the phase-out process and the cost of converting, and a number of changes were made to the rule to accommodate that. What they found, though, that once the policy change was put in place, and there was an ultimate end date to when they could use these heavy fuel oils, that they all started switching over because there was an economic advantage to switching over, and they realized they couldn't use their burners forever, and so when the opportunities came up, they switched over. And so the ultimate changeover happened before the final date in which they were required to. And then the changes in New York City, which is different from Philadelphia, and air quality were dramatic. Large reductions in sulfur dioxide, large reductions in PM 2.5. There are many buildings were using these heavy oils at the time, and switching made a big difference. Here we think the difference will be smaller, but still valuable.
Absolutely. When you think of the impact it has on little people, let's just start with them and those who suffer, and adults who are suffering with asthma.
Yes.
So what top 3 cities in the country are really leaders in this space? I'm always interested to know, where does Philadelphia stack? So are we like Neanderthals, or are we in the leadership space? What other cities, particularly on this particular measure, are way ahead of us when it comes to clean air?
I'm not too familiar with what's happening in other cities, but my understanding is that this is a problem that's unusual for many of these older northeastern cities.
Okay.
So it's not so much an issue for cities that are newer, like Southwest or California.
Sure.
So, which may be why it's become less of a national issue, and it's just been addressed locally. So New York City has been, really taking some progressive action there. I don't know about how many other cities for whom it's a big problem and what their actions have been.
Mm-hmm. Any comment, please?
No, I think that's exactly right. I mean, it is an issue that is mostly in the Northeast, and New York sort of took the lead, and I think we're following it. I don't know where Boston and other cities like that are, but we're definitely not Neanderthals.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, that's good news.
Yeah.
So in response to your very heartfelt comment, I always like to give credit to a former city council person, Jim Kinney, who saw the need to create a committee on the environment and sustainability. It's really been a growth, and I really want to learn in a new way in moving to a service chair of this committee, and I have in a great way. I'm actually kind of stupid about recycling and things like that, and trying to bring others along, because there's still those who are coming along kicking and screaming. We know that.
Oh, yeah.
So it's going to take, leaders and those who care to help folks understand that it's really not about us right now. It really is about protecting the planet for the long haul. And being encouraged to know that there are members of this committee who care as much as I, and have put forth real measures that are going to continue to have this committee have a real solid place and position in leadership when it comes to the environment sustainability. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, now let's move to our last and final bill, number 190703.
Bill number 190703, an ordinance amending section 20/304 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Compensation for Members of Boards, Commissions, Committees, and Councils to provide for compensation for the members of the Environmental Justice Advisory Commission, and amending section 21/3002 entitled Environmental Justice Advisory Commission with respect to membership, timing, and reporting, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Bill number 190703 makes a change to the environmental justice legislation introduced by my office in 2017 and passed in 2018. That legislation calls for the establishment of an Environmental Justice Commission to provide a data and policy framework for environmental justice decision-making by the city and other stakeholders. While the Office of Sustainability and the Deputy Director, Celine Chapman, have been working diligently on this issue, they need more time to ramp up the commission and complete its work. In the meantime, we're adjusting the rules of the commission so that it pays the community members who take part, compensates the community members who take part. We also require the commission to reflect and capture and look like the racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic diversity of the city. I'm going to repeat that. It's a requirement that the commission reflect and capture the racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic diversity of our city. And with that, we want to call up our last and final panel, Christine Knapp, Director for the Office of Sustainability, and Allison Acevedo, Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, if she's here. And I would like to trigger my colleagues who are listening in their offices to prepare to rejoin us here at the table so that we can move, vote on an amendment and move these bills out of committee. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies.
Good afternoon.
Okay. Director of Office of Sustainability, Christine Knapp.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, or good afternoon at this point, Chairperson Reynolds Brown and members of the committee. I'm Christine Knapp. I'm the Director of the Office of Sustainability for the City of Philadelphia. I'm here to testify in support of Bill number 190703, which authorizes commissioners to receive compensation for their services to the Environmental Justice Advisory Commission, as well as extending the timeline for the commission to complete its work. I'll skip over some of my testimony since I know we're sort of at the end of this hearing here, but I think we all know the goal of the county administration that's been repeated is that every Philadelphian, no matter their zip code, should be able to thrive and succeed. And sustainability, we think, is a key part of ensuring that every resident is healthy, lives in a quality neighborhood, and has the opportunity to prosper. And while we know that Philadelphia's made a lot of progress in advancing sustainability in the last decade, we know that not all neighborhoods have equally benefited from this work. One of our goals these last few years has been to pursue a proactive approach to address disparities in health and well-being associated with environmental factors. We've prioritized our work in neighborhoods where it will make the most difference. For example, we've been working for more than a year in partnership with the Hunting Park community on a Beat the Heat pilot to address the disproportionately high heat experienced in that area and understand how the city and other partners can help residents thrive during periods of high heat. The insight gained through this effort has contributed to the city undertaking a strategic planning process to mitigate the inequitable distribution of the urban tree canopy. Even with this programmatic progress, we recognize that procedural equity, having a substantial voice in leadership in policymaking process, is essential to furthering environmental justice for affected communities. The voices of residents in environmental justice areas are too often not heard during the decision-making process. That is for this reason that we support the adoption of an Environmental Justice Advisory Commission in the first place. We believe this commission will help identify neighborhoods with disproportionately high and adverse human health or environmental effects, make data that's available helpful to understanding environmental justice concerns, review existing programs, policies, and activities, and processes that may impact environmental justice concerns, and address barriers to meaningful involvement in policy decisions. For the Commission to realize its full promise, we must acknowledge and address the inaccessibility of civic engagement. Resource limitations, whether it be time, money, or other factors, act as a barrier for traditionally marginalized communities in exercising their voices equitably in these civic environments. When these barriers preclude such communities from telling their own stories, we miss vital perspectives that can point the way to new approaches in addressing disparities. Promoting equitable and inclusive civic engagement means improving the accessibility of civic engagement opportunities to communities most affected by the issues and decisions. Thus, we must ensure those most affected by environmental justice concerns are able to serve on the Environmental Justice Advisory Commission. It is for these reasons we support Bill number 190703. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before this committee and am able to answer any of your questions. However, I do want to also just take a minute to note that this may in fact be the last Committee of the Environment with Councilman Reynolds Brown as chair, and I do want to just recognize your work over a long period of time in bringing forward so many different pieces of legislation, and I think this commission sort of being a really nice way to go out and ensure that we continue this work after you've moved on. So I just want to recognize and thank you for your leadership over the years.
You're very welcome, and I'm confident that the commission in this configuration will ensure continued action in this space. Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome back.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Reynolds Brown and other Environmental Committee members of Council. My name is Allison Anderson Acevedo. I'm the Director of the Office of Environmental Justice for the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. I'm here to discuss the importance of the proposed environmental justice legislation. As mentioned in previous testimony before Council, our office has been in existence since 2002 with the mission to work to ensure fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people with the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental policies, regulations, and laws, as well as with respect to the identification of environmental issues that affect the most vulnerable communities. In Pennsylvania, environmental justice areas are defined as areas that have 30% people of color and 20% low income. And we want to help to ensure equity and access to engagement with the environment in those areas and throughout the Commonwealth. The Office of Environmental Justice is a vital part of the Department of Environmental Protection and a key component of state government generally. Our office is able to effectively convene community organizations and residents and provide education and outreach to communities who often lack access to government and offer exposure to environmental education and concepts. Over the past year and a half, we've had 7 environmental justice roundtables, which have convened and enabled community stakeholders to have interactive engagement with our Secretary and DEP staff around critical environmental justice issues identified by those communities. We firmly believe our work is crucial to government and communities cultivating positive interactions with each other and developing a framework for public participation, education, and outreach about the environment. The Department of Environmental Protection focuses on collaboration and education of communities around environmental justice, and we rely on active and engaged communities and institutional partners to help advance EJ work in PA. These local partners have on-the-ground knowledge of issues facing a community. So in Philadelphia, we see that the legislation around environmental justice will ensure that Philadelphia will, on its own, be able to develop a unique environmental justice blueprint, build its own detailed and tailored data around EJ, and comprehensively analyze environmental justice in the cities, and work collaboratively and actively with its residents to enhance public participation about government practices and procedures about the environment. This also means that Philadelphia officials will be able to identify critical and relevant EJ problems, integrate EJ principles into city policies, agencies, and practices, and take specific action to address EJ issues that arise in Philadelphia. With the mandated report on environmental justice and development and operation of an EJ Commission, Philadelphia's government and environmental community and residents will be poised to address EJ concerns of this city. So DEP and the Office of Environmental Justice look forward to continuing our partnership and collaboration with the city to provide resources from DEP and other state agencies that benefit community organizations and ultimately the residents of Philadelphia, so that they can participate in the decision-making process on environmental issues and live in and enjoy quality environments. And I too just want to echo the statements Christine made about the work that you've done, Councilwoman, in the environment, and really I'm thankful that we've had a champion in you and talking about the environment and really advancing practical solutions to environmental concerns. So thank you so much for your work.
The operative word there is practical. It's important to be realistic and respect what others bring to the table.
And I just had one other comment about the stakeholder group.
Briefly, I'm going to say yes, but I want to vote on these bills before, because I don't want to lose my quorum. So we're going to go into a meeting, vote on the bills, and come back to the hearing, because I do want to hear from Christine Knapp as well as the final comment you want to make. So with that, the City Council, we will now move into a meeting to take action on these 3 measures. And so I am first going to call on, I'm going to want to offer an amendment to bill number No, forgive me. The chair recognizes Councilman Green for a motion on the amendment to Bill number 190-600.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Bill number 190-600 be amended. This amendment has been circulated to all members of City Council.
Second.
All right, this amendment has been moved and properly second to Bill number 190-600 be approved. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That being said, the motion carries and Bill number 190-600 as amended has been approved. The chair now again recognizes Councilmember Green for a motion on Bill number 190-600 as amended.
Right. Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Bill number 190-600 as amended be voted out of this committee with a favorable recommendation so that the rules of council can be suspended and that this bill can be heard, have its first reading at our next session of council.
It has been moved and properly seconded that Bill number 190-600 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading at the next scheduled session of City Council. Slow down, Blondie. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, and so the motion carries. Bill number 190-600 as amended will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and a request that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading at the next scheduled session of City Council. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Green for a motion on hold up. Okay then. All right. For a motion on the amendment to Bill number 190-636.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The amendment for Bill number 190-636 has been circulated. I move that this bill be amended.
It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to Bill number 190-636 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, and therefore Bill number 190-636 has been amended. The chair again recognizes Councilmember Green for a motion on Bill number 190-636 as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Bill number 190-636 as amended be voted out of this committee with a favorable recommendation and the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at our next session of council.
It has been moved and properly seconded that Bill number 190-636 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading of this bill at the next scheduled session of City Council. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. Bill number 190-636 as amended will be reported with a favorable recommendation and a request that the rules of council be suspended so to permit first reading at the next scheduled session of Philadelphia City Council. The chair again recognizes Councilmember Green for a motion on Bill number 190-703.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Bill number 190-703 be voted out of this committee with a favorable recommendation and the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at our next session of council.
It has been moved and properly seconded that Bill number 190-703 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading of these rules at the next scheduled session of City Council. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Bill number 190-703 will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation and a request that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading of this at the next scheduled session of City Council. The meeting is adjourned. We will now go back into the City Council hearing, and I want to thank you, Councilwoman Janie Blackwell. Okay, now, we're back. Thank you very much, colleagues. We're now back into the hearing, and so thank you so very, very much, Christine Knapp, for hearing the interest raised by the Sierra Club, particularly around the Ready for 100 resolution that we passed, I forget when we passed it.
Last week, right?
Oh my, very recently, which calls to adopt more aggressive goals to reduce the climate change. So just provide your thoughts for all of us. And how often does the city actually intentionally talk through what the climate goals are. Given the new science, lastly, do you believe our goals are enough?
Sure. Well, thank you again for the opportunity to speak on this, and I'm pleased to see that this resolution has passed. We support it from the administration perspective. Obviously, Mayor Kenny signed on to the Ready for 100 resolution over 3 years ago, I think, at this point, right? So clearly, Mayor Kenny was supportive of that measure to move the city towards 100% renewable energy. He's also made the commitment to reduce carbon emissions 80% by 2050, and we've committed the city government to move to 100% renewable electricity by 2030, so an even closer deadline. I think in the conversations around that 80 by 50 goal with Sierra Club and with others, we know that's probably not enough. That sort of was the best standard for a long time for a lot of cities and countries to be committing themselves to. I think more recent science and more recent data is showing us that we need to be doing probably more by sooner. We don't know what that exact number is yet for ourselves, and we're kind of, this is a global issue, so lots of other people are asking this question as well. I think we continue to use that 80 by 50 goal as essentially shorthand for whatever it is that we actually need to do until we know what that right goal is. If it's 90 by 40, if whatever the right number is, we'll figure that out. It does not necessarily dramatically change what we need to be doing right now. And so I think we want to continue moving and acting rather than stopping that work to figure out what the right goal is. So we can kind of try to do both things at once, continue the work that we know we just really need to get done, and then we can kind of adjust that timeline slightly as we know sort of what that best science tells us it needs to be. I think, again, we've made a lot of progress collectively over the years. As noted earlier, investments in energy efficiency are super important, even if it's not moving us towards renewables. It's making sure that we're using less energy of all kinds. That's the cleanest energy, the energy we don't use. And today's bill around building tune-ups is going to contribute to the reduction in that energy use. A lot of work around renewables has also been done. The solar power purchase agreement that council approved last year will give the city 22% of our electricity. That's the largest solar project in the state of Pennsylvania by sevenfold. Although Penn State just announced that they're doing one as well that's just a little bit bigger than ours, so we may have to go back and make ours a little bigger, just to keep that. We're actually, and in the theme of friendly competition, when we did our power purchase agreement, we heard from SEPTA that they wanted to do one as well. They called us, we shared information with them. They've announced a power purchase agreement of 35 megawatts, about half the size of ours, still very big. We know several other universities are interested as well. So on October 17th, we're holding a workshop with Rocky Mountain Institute and other experts to come and teach folks, whether they're universities, cultural institutions, other large purchasers, how to do power purchase agreements. So we're spreading the information and the learning that we've gone through so that others can do it, because we need everyone to be taking that kind of action to meet these aggressive goals. We're also pleased with the solar rebate program that council just approved and will be launching in January, that we hope will help bring renewables to more people. As part of the American Cities Climate Challenge, we are, with Councilmember Green's support, moving on a PGW business diversification study. We think that's a critical part of this Ready for 100 commitment, is that it's not just about electricity, it's also about thermal energy, and so we need to be looking at how we're, look what our future is of PGW and how we can diversify their business practices while also meeting our carbon goals. And as Mino brought up, the cars in our fleet are a super important part of this equation as well. We're in the midst of doing a municipal clean fleet plan right now.
Is that right?
Also part of the American Cities Climate Challenge work. So we hope to have that plan wrapped up by the end of the year, so that the city has a roadmap for how we can move our own fleet towards a cleaner future. So lots underway, more certainly to be done. The stakeholder engagement comments, I think I take to heart. I think I've been making that commitment since I came into this position to be more externally engaging and find ways to have those conversations. So always open to figuring out how to do that more often. And I think the EJ Commission, honestly, is a great way to also be sure that we're hearing, our office is hearing from folks who may not already be traditionally involved in the work that we're doing. So I think that will also help us expand stakeholder engagement.
For sure. Two follow-up questions. With regards to the commission and the interest in having a stakeholders group, do you believe that they are one and of the same, or is that two different entities? What are your views about that from the both of you?
I would just say, to start off, I think that there's an explicit reason why the EJ Commission needs to exist beyond just any sort of larger stakeholder group. And it's really, again, because, as I said in my comments, there's been barriers to hearing the voices of those that have been most marginalized, who are most impacted by disparities, and their voices really need a special place to be lifted up and heard. And we need to take that extra action to make sure that they're being heard, where I think we have other opportunities to engage. You know, the Sierra Club, they know me, they can contact me, we can talk anytime. So I think there's kind of a different level of accessibility that I think makes the EJ Commission important and separate.
Okay. Please.
And also, yeah, I do agree. I think the EJ Commission is critical just because it's a component of government, and I think that the issues related to environmental justice and equity principles have to be elevated through the commission, through the government. So the stakeholder group is also critical, but it provides opportunity for a broader range of people to be actively involved.
I see.
So just wanted to just comment on the stakeholder group that we have some precedent in Erie. Our office had worked with creating an Erie stakeholder group. It was around a particular issue, but around Erie Coke, but we've done that in other places, and we'll be willing to work with Office of Sustainability, any council office and other government to really provide some staff time to support a stakeholder group happening in Philadelphia.
I know that there will be many who will be looking forward to hearing the report on how our city is going to move and engage itself or activate itself around the handling of our fleet and what the future is for our fleet vehicles. I can say for one that I'll be looking forward to hearing what that is. Let me lean on you both to sit down, and I know that your office is already intimately engaged with the school district, but when you hear the interest raised by Councilwoman Gilman and Councilman Green, and when I hear it appears based on testimony, the limited staffing resources they have there, there's an opportunity for collaboration to push that ball forward faster when it comes to the first bill that we talked about today. So please, since she has only been there 90 days, have a sit down with her, because for me there is a tremendous opportunity to help them push that ball more quickly down the road on the environmental issues that have been raised both by Councilman Green and Councilwoman Gim.
Yeah, we have definitively promised that we will continue to have a conversation with them and figure out ways to support them.
Yes.
I don't think we said it earlier, but we have to tune up our own buildings. The city has several buildings over 50,000 square feet, so we're going to be going through this process ourselves. Wow. So if we can be doing that with the school district, maybe we join forces and learn aside each other. I think that's something we're very committed to doing with them.
It's called working smarter, indeed. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
The City Council Committee on the Environment Sustainability is now adjourned. Thank you.